Tibet, or the roof of the world, with its stunning unspoiled beauty, is locked away in the remote Himalayas. This vast, unforgiving terrain is also known as one of the areas of extreme poverty in China. 3 years ago, about a quarter of its population, or nearly 600,000 people, were said to be below China's poverty line. By the end of last year, that percentage had been slashed to just below 6%. So what has facilitated the reduction? One of them is the Sichuan-Tibet Railway. The 1,700-kilometer line connects the regional capital Lhasa with the Chinese megacity of Chengdu. Now all of Tibet counties are accessible by road, helping to bring a surge of tourists and newcomers. Tibet's anti-poverty projects are arranged under the so-called 3 areas and 3 prefectures program. The plan aimed to eliminate the absolute poverty in deeply impoverished areas of the region itself, and also Tibetan inhabited areas in Qinghai, Sichuan, Gansu, and Yunnan provinces. Youyang, CGTN.
Well, I spoke with Sean in more detail about those Tibetan traditions and asked if growing development is seen as a threat to the unique heritage there.
I think without question it is a double-edged sword, and to a large degree the people that have always called that region home are concerned about the environment, because you're building more roads, building more rail lines, and people are being lifted out of poverty, but there is the concern they're going to lose touch with their past, the clothes I was talking about, the language, just all these wonderful little intricacies that make up this cultural mosaic. But I think there really is a push right now that maybe there hadn't been in the past to preserve all of this, how important it is, whether it's making the clothes they call the bazaar clothing so ornate that it's too ornate to wear every day, but they wear it for big dances and big celebrations, and it's just wonderful. The language, just even the way, the nomadic way of life, the way that people have always lived, moving their yak herd to better grasslands day after day after day. And what I learned was several families will mix all the yak together, and at the end of the day they can move the yak back into their own land. To me, it's like, they all look the same. Like, how do you know which one's which? But obviously there are the concerns. It is an area that is warming faster than any place, 3 times faster on the average. So glaciers are surrendering their ice and retreating, and that's leading to some significant flooding in spring times. It's washing out the roads that are so difficult to build. So without question, it is a double-edged sword. But when you talk to the people, they seem to like the fact that their children can have milk every day, they can have meat, they can have eggs, they're getting an education. And when we asked them, what do you want to be? As an astronaut, a teacher, a mathematician. One little kid said he wanted to be a Formula One racer. I imagine 10 years earlier people in that region had never heard of Formula One. So it is nice to see people have greater aspirations, but you never want to lose that wonderful environment.
Now, you mentioned a few things. You mentioned yak, you mentioned milk. As a foodie, I'm always going to bring food into it, and food is a wonderful expression of culture. What was the food like there? The
food was an acquired taste, let's put it that way. I was a little unprepared for what it was going to be. I mean, I knew we'd have some yak, and we did have some yak stew, and the fresh meat's obviously wonderful, but the majority of people up there follow Buddhism, and that means they live in harmony with life, and they don't want to kill animals unless it's necessary to survive. So the people who own the yak herds, they may kill 2, maybe 3 yak during the winter. Then the meat is smoked, and they live on that for the rest of the year. But we had dried yak meat, which is very dry and very chewy. It takes a while to get through. Had yak milk, which was good. It came warm, and if you would talk to somebody for a second, it would form a little skin on top. So we're used to that as what I grew up with. Yak yogurt, which was pretty good, except very sour, and they would put this heaping amount of sugar in, which was way too much for me, and yak butter and yak butter tea. So those, I'll let you try those. I'll let you, I can tell you that I drank a lot of tea. I don't remember Andrew, our photographer, drinking butter tea one time. So one of us was adventurous and one of us wasn't.
Now, speaking of adventurous, what about tourists? Did you see a lot of tourists while you were out there?
You see tourists in Lhasa, but you see Western tourists there as well. When you get out, not at all, really. I mean, there's no other way to say it. In many areas, you have to have a special permit to go in. We were there with CGTN. All the permits have been taken care of for us. But a lot of people would come up to us because they hadn't seen Westerners. And then there's this wonderful tradition when you meet somebody, as if you're an honored guest, they will bestow, the white satin scarf around your neck. And everywhere we went, people were so kind to us, and that happened over and over and over again. And I will remember Tibet for the people's warmth and just how it lived up to every ounce of my expectations in terms of just raw, rugged beauty.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry has condemned the US for passing its 2019 Tibet bill, saying it violates international law and the basic norms governing international relations. A spokesperson said the US should recognise the great progress the region has made over the past 60 years. She added that Washington's actions were disrespectful to China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and the US should stop interfering in China's domestic affairs.
US lawmakers officially showed their hand on yet another issue to contain China, Tibet. The Tibet Policy and Support Act of 2019 passed by a big margin in the House of Representatives on Tuesday. Among many things, the bill threatens sanctions on Chinese personnel who interfere in Tibetan Buddhism affairs, forces China to agree to the opening of a US consulate in Tibet, and lectures China on how to preserve the local ecology. A traditional Chinese saying goes, when there are too many fleas on someone, it just stops feeling itchy. There are so many issues I have with this bill that I don't even know where to start. In short, it has just taken the art of meddling in someone else's internal affairs to a whole new level. Kudos. But the level of ignorance revealed has also sunken to a new low. And I'm talking about the succession of the Dalai Lama. It states that the act opposes any effort by the government of the People's Republic of China to identify or install Tibetan Buddhist religious leaders in a manner inconsistent with the established religious practice and system of Tibetan Buddhism. Clearly, these American lawmakers have not done their homework, because if they had, they would have known where the very title Dalai came from. Sonam Gyaltsen, who would become the first to be known as a Dalai Lama, appealed to the Ming Dynasty court for bestowing and received that title in a royal decree in 1587. They would have known the Dalai Lama title could also be stripped by the central government in case of severe felony, such as treason, and this happened 3 times in history. They would have known that for over 400 years it's been a tradition that the chosen candidates of the Dalai Lama, known as soul boys, would have to be installed in an official ceremony by the central government. They would have known that the 14th Dalai Lama himself, the incumbent one, was installed in an official ceremony in Lhasa in 1940, chaired by a special commissioner representing the then central government. To deny the role of the central government in the process is to deny the incumbent Dalai Lama his legitimacy. Do these US lawmakers know what they're doing? The identification and installation of the Dalai Lama has never been a sole matter decided by the Tibetan Buddhism faith community. Instead of calling on the Chinese central government to stop interfering in its own affairs, it is US lawmakers who should lift their hands off China's internal affairs.